Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to check out a special selection today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Tom, the final song off of their debut, a perplexing album about youth, alienation, and finding yourself. We're going to be looking at the group Animal Collective. The song is called Alvin Row. I have been told that the beginning is loud. I'm not really sure. I was told that there's, as a spoiler warning, maybe reduce the volume a little bit for the first 60 seconds. I don't really know what that means. As usual, the volume isn't going to be as loud as my voice on your end, so I think we should all be fine, but I'm definitely turning my volume down a little bit. Let's dive into this and see what Animal Collective is bringing to the table today. Okay, I will turn your side down a little bit. This is wildly unnecessary. We still have a high-pitched whine though. That is annoying. Musically, this is nice, but the consistency of those higher frequencies as a drone is beyond annoying. Harmonically, there's a really large schism between the music and the vocals. There's intonation stuff on the vocals too, where they're rarely right in tune. I do like some of the production choices. I like the instrument choice generally as well. There's some neat little flourish in the drums. Like the piano and the synths here do a really great job of portraying a spaciousness, openness, maybe even alluding to introspection. There are some really inspired choices here. They're just never presented in a way that creates a consistency that feels anything like storytelling. Not quite nearly as big as I was expecting, but I suppose it makes sense within how they've sounded so far. Instrument placement is interesting though. I don't know why it's taken me so long to recognize vocals on the left, drums on the right, synths center. It's almost as if they want you to focus on these synths, but they're never as moving as the vocals are. I just realized the lyrics to this, they're probably going to be bonkers. Oh, we got some steel brushes? Yeah, okay. The fast movement in the drums against these long held out synth tones, center right, or center left. I like that contrasting energy. I think it's great. Little bouncing things, yeah. Again, really inspired decisions at times. Sections like this could really use some movement. Just the two chords, one melody. We have another high frequency instrument here, not quite as bad as the beginning, and at least it plays 3 notes in progression now, so that's better than drone. It's still very shrill though. Oh, is that a flub on the piano? It was like a grace note, about a half step down, and then pulled back up. It was almost like he wanted to hit an F, but he hit the E instead and just like flicked the finger over to the F. Yeah, it's interesting. The beginning of the song moved so quickly, I had a tough time grasping anything, and the back half of the song is just repeating the same things over and over and over. The last moment, changing the placement of the vocals. Had to be sure. Okay. I just feel really bad tearing into music because I do feel like even if I don't get what's happening, or even if a song doesn't particularly speak to me, that doesn't mean that it is meritless. And even to the most extreme side of that argument, even if a work of art appeals to no one, I still believe it has merit to its existence. Music is art, and while we do have some art that is very cool, palatable for a lot of people, art can also be really messy. And even alternatively, art should be really messy. Not all of it, of course, but we should have some art that pushes the limits. This is definitely that. I didn't enjoy this. There were some neat ideas in here in places. And I think generally it was good. but there's so many moments where they were going in one direction that I really liked, and then they shifted gears for something totally different that I didn't. Almost every single moment of joy or excitement I got out of this song was quickly replaced with annoyance. On multiple levels of annoyance as well. It's really difficult to approach this, for me, after a single listen, objectively. Because it is experimental, it's avant garde, it pushes the boundaries on what music is. Maybe not quite as far as some of the most extreme avant garde work out there, but this is definitely far from a realm of mainstream palatability. And I. It's been brought up a few times on this channel that I've been called out for having a narrow mind. I generally don't agree with that. I think I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to music, but I do have a bit more of a narrow idea of what I enjoy in music and what I can understand in music. That my type of musical understanding and dissection and analysis definitely sits more inside the realms of traditional music than experimental. And so, having listened to this track, I have very little in the way of understanding what it's doing, of what it's trying to accomplish. I have very little understanding of a story that it told me. And those are usually the things, the artistic elements, the thematic elements that allow me to speak highly of a song that doesn't work for me casually. I don't really have that here. So I think I'm just going to kind of go over a few topics, a few recurring ideas in here that help me understand their composition style, possibly, or maybe a production style, and kind of try to speak about that as objectively as possible, as an eye inside of their creation process, or a look inside a possibility of their creation process. I've never read an interview, I've never chatted with these people, I don't know how they go about making music, but I did pick up some ideas in here that kind of give a little bit of insight into the process. Because if I decide to do anything subjective here, I'm just going to start digging into it in ways that aren't so positive because, like I said, this just really is not my cup of tea. And it probably has nothing to do with the song, but I have a little headache starting to appear right here behind my eye, and I didn't have that when I started the song. Probably correlation, but no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's definitely something else. All right. We have to start with the opening minute. I am really curious what their intention was here. The chaotic element, sure. The wild drumming, the polyrhythms in the drumming, the chaotic piano and synthesizer work, layers upon layers upon layers of things that are all doing their own things, creating cacophony within the song. I get that. I don't usually enjoy it, but I understand the importance of utilizing chaos as a narrative and even thematic tool within one's toolbox. But it was also paired with a very high frequency whine that came in and out and was honestly painful to listen to in an interesting way. I don't think I've utilized that description of music at all on this channel. We did have a song that made me a little nauseous with the production. I don't remember what song that was. But otherwise, I don't think music has generally had a negative physical impact on me. But that hurt my ears a little bit. So much so that I turned my music down and I turned your music down for you just on the off chance that the end result in the recording is a little bit louder than is uh, painless to listen to. It's not a fun intro to the song, and it immediately put me in a bad mood. I don't get that at all. Maybe there's a thematic reason for it, but at that point also, I don't know. Like I said, it's painful to listen to. That's not something I think anybody should ever put in their music. I'm curious if anyone has an opinion about that other than people shouldn't do it, because that's where I stand. I understand that perspective really well. And artistic integrity, doing whatever you feel your art needs. I get that part. I really do. But creating discomfort in me, well, see, there's the blurry line, isn't it? I find dissonance, especially heavy dissonance, typically to be uncomfortable. Should that be a remove from music? No. People can get goosebumps listening to music. They can get the chills. Should that be removed? Music can make people anxious or tense. That's not necessarily comfortable. So, like, where do you draw the line to the point where these high pitched frequencies hurt to listen to? It's a different kind of physical discomfort. I don't know. That's an interesting conversation. Not one I think we can do here. I don't think I'm equipped enough to speak about it with any sort of authority. But yeah, I did not care for that at all. However, not long after this, the song kicks into gear and we have our first section, which is, well, a bit more of a refined version of that. We still have a high frequency pitch, but it isn't piercing. It is not fantastic. It's just this high pitched whine sitting at the top of the song as a drone. I hated every minute of that, but it wasn't painful anymore. So kudos to Animal Collective, I suppose. I'm getting a bit cynical here. Let's rein it in. The rest of the music, though, airs on interest. It's not always palatable in ways, but there are cool things going on. The drummer throughout most of this section is pretty cool. The drum beats don't always make a lot of sense to me, but I can hear the technicality in them. They have this ebb and flow between really simple ideas and really complex ones, moving between them very effortlessly. I love it. It's like water. And to me, that shows not just a great deal of musicianship and skill from the drummer, but also in restraint, knowing when to do things. It also creates a really cool ebb and flow through the song, through this high contrast and the rhythmic information. That's neat. We have the vocals, and they're there. They give us melody. I want to dedicate a whole section to vocals, so I'm going to hold off on that a little bit. But we do have melody coming into the song through that. And then we also have a mixture of counterpoint and ornamentation with the synthesizers that exist everywhere. Some of them are center channel. We also have a piano that's center channel. We have sounds coming off from the left and the right, and channel panning. And some of them, like I said, are melody. Sometimes they're playing along with the vocals. Sometimes they're counterpoint, doing their own melody along with the vocals. Sometimes they're ornamental, just putting in these pockets of sounds like little decoration. It's on paper, it works well. Rhythm, melody, counter melody or harmony, and ornamentation. We're kind of missing core harmony here. We don't really have chord progression in any of this, but that's not necessary. I think we get enough harmonic information generally from the instrumentation, but also I don't really think harmony is too important And we'll touch on that in a second, but if we did have chord progressions in here, I think it would break the whole song. That'll be the foreshadowing I leave. Stick around, watch more of this video, get those metrics up as you wait around for the answers to your burning questions about harmony. Ah, geez. And this is pretty much the foundation for the entirety of the song. The first half does move between ideas rather rapidly, with the melodies from the vocals changing often, the drummer kind of being all over the place, and the ornamentation and additional melodies. I don't know. I couldn't find any patterns in there, which makes me feel like they're linear and or random. And random, I don't think would be completely out of the question here. But the back half of the track ends up being very, very repetitive. The patterns are very clear and very short, and you get to hear them dozens of times. So I hope you like them. And I find this schism to be interesting, but we're not on that topic yet. Dang, I'm dropping a lot of this. But yeah, so that's our foundation then. And the song doesn't really change from there. We kind of alter the timbres, we alter melodies, we alter rhythms, but the roles are as they are consistently through the song. None of that really changes at all. And in fact, even despite the timbral changes that we have with the shifting instrumentation over the course of the track, it all does feel very samey throughout the 11 minute runtime on this when we take out the intro and outro. It ends up feeling very samey throughout. Now, harmony. Harmony. The reason I said that I don't think the song would work with the chord progression going on is because we do have a schism of harmony. That is to say that the vocal melody generally does not line up with the implied chords of the piano and synthesizer melodies of the ornamental ideas. We don't have chords playing, but we can certainly hear all of the notes being used in these linear concepts and figure out what notes aren't being presented, and thus we can build their chords out and, with enough information, build out a key. But the vocals are in a very different sound harmonically than the rest of the band. And this is constant. And it actually comes down to two things. One, I don't think that the vocals are singing the same note. So we are in a different chord progression, maybe even a different key than the rest of the band. But two, I think more importantly, is that the vocals are engaging with a ton of microtonality. Not in a way that I think is intentional, just that the vocals tend to not be in tune. This is something I brought up during the reaction. They are constantly wavering into being flat and sharp. Flat being a little bit under the pitch, sharp being over the pitch. And so even if the vocals are singing a note that is harmonically in tune with the rest of the band, it's still not the exact note, and thus it tends to feel like it doesn't fit with the rest of the group. And so we have these two layers of harmonic dissonance between one of our instruments and all of the other ones. And so if we had a chord progression in here, we would have a consistent feeling of the harmonic information in the song that would directly clash with the vocals constantly. And I think it would make the song sound more dissonant than it does. I think it's kind of easy to ignore the dissonance if you don't quite have a trained ear for it, because like I said, you don't have a chord given to you at any specific time. You're kind of sussing out the harmonic information from the notes being played. That's might be something that some people can just have a gut sound for, but I think it's something that you tend to develop as you play an instrument or write music, and begin to develop your chord theory, and you can begin to hear the chord through the melodies. I don't think that's something everybody can do. And so I think the song actually comes off a little bit more harmonically consonant than I'm picking it out to be to your average listener. But if you put the chords in there, it becomes apparent to everyone just how dissonant the vocals are. And I think that greatly disrupts the song. It kind of skates by here, but if you put the chords in it, it would sound bad to everybody. And when I say bad, I mean dissonant. Your general audience doesn't like dissonance. I lump myself into a general mainstream audience here. There's definitely fans of microtonality and even dissonant sounds in general. Metal has a lot of dissonance in it, and it's very well received. Avant-garde music, experimental music, even I even like a bit of it. Jazz can get kind of dissonant at times, but the heavy dissonance in here, it's a bit much. That's for sure. And I guess I kind of scooped the vocals. I thought I was going to have a separate section for the vocals, but this is exactly what I wanted to talk about, is the fact that they're just never in tune. I don't mind the vocal delivery. I think that sort of airy, whispery lightness actually works really well with the general sound and production of this song. I just wish they were singing a bit more in tune, especially given the very concrete, defined chords that they're utilizing in here. If we're working with power chords, you have your root and your octave, which are the same note, and then your fifth note of the scale. That's not a lot of information. You can actually play around with your notes and create a lot of cool sounds that work well with it. Whereas if your chord is 4, 5, 6 notes wide, maybe you're playing your whole entire scale at one time, which would, I'm sure it's possible. But anyways, if you're playing more notes rather than just two of your notes, that's more information that your melody needs to line up with. And this song likes to use a lot of notes. So yeah, intonation it becomes really important as your chords get more fully realized, which this song likes to explore fully realized chords, and it never quite works for me. Production. What is with the production here? This, I think, is the most abstract part of my discussion here. It's not really subjective, but it's not really objective. I don't know. We don't have a word for that. Those are opposites. We don't have a spectrum of objectivity, do we? We don't have words for in the middle of that. I don't know what to make of it. It's wild. We have the vocals off to the left, usually pretty quiet. We have the drums off to the right, and then everywhere is our instruments, the synths and the keyboards and whatever else. And they're usually given the spotlight as far as volume and presence are concerned. There's multiple situations in here where a melody, a slower moving melodic line, even not even a true melody, just something of a moving nature, is presented in the center channel with more volume than either of our two side instruments, and so the ear naturally gravitates towards it, but it's just not doing anything of interest. It's a foundational sound where the left pan vocals are actually moving. They have a melodic ostinato going on. This is what our attention should be put towards, and it's not. It is very experimental to go in this direction, and it also feels intentional. I don't know. See, here's the thing, right? This is a very experimental track. I think it would be quite easy to say that these are just a bunch of amateurs throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and they don't know that it sounds awkward, and so they just leave it. But that feels wrong for a band that has almost 500,000 monthly listeners. This has to be intentional, right? They know what they're doing. They've done this for a reason. I have no idea what that reason is, but it does create a unique sonic imprint. really haven't heard much like Animal Collective, and I think if I heard another song like this, my first uh, point of relationship would be, hey, this reminds me of that Animal Collective song we checked out a while ago. It's just that unique, and that it's difficult to talk about experimentation at all from a subjective point of view. The purpose of experimentation is to do something different, and I'm criticizing it because it doesn't do what the status quo does with production. But I don't think the experimentation is positive either. It feels more experimental for experimental's sake, more so than, hey, we actually found a better way to do things and we're going to showcase it. And there's nothing wrong with experimentation's sake. You want to do your own thing just because you're tired of listening to the same thing that everyone else does? Go for it. But I found it very difficult to listen to this track. And there's a lot of moments where I found what I thought was the important information to be obfuscated underneath less important information. You put the cool top of the building underneath the foundation and no one can see it. It's bizarre. Bizarre, though, it's usually a pretty good word for experimentation. There's a heavy repetition in the back half of the track. I don't really have much to add to this. I just didn't like it. I am not a fan of repetition in general. Your stereotypical electronic dance music that you would hear in, like, I don't know, some teen house party in like a, I don't know, a Western film or something like that. The hyper repeated 4-bar phrase over and over and over again. It gets to a point of almost annoyance for me. It's like somebody repeating your name over and over and over and over. You just want it to stop, and it just boils your blood, man. That's what this song started to do for me at the end. I was so tired of it. But we did have a little bit of movement. We had a bit of a decrescendo on the instruments, leaving just the vocals, and the vocals ended up getting panned across. And then there was a little bit of silence, and then sounded like, I don't know, a capture of 45 seconds of an old TV show or a film, some sort of sample. It's really tough for me to put all this together. None of it feels like it's designed to be together. It doesn't tell me any sort of overarching concept or theme or narrative. It's just a series of perplexing and confounding ideas that create abstract art. You go to the museum and you see something that's just doesn't really make any sense. Just splotches of paint thrown on a canvas. Some people see that and find inspiration. It means something to them. What you put into it is what you get out of it. Generally speaking, anyways. This is the musical equivalent of that. I've tried to put something into it. I've tried to understand it. I've spent the last 30 minutes, give or take, breaking it down, trying to get any grasp on it at all, but I'm walking away from it very confused and unhappy in a sense. Like I said, I did not enjoy my time listening to it on a purely casual level. I do not want to hear many of these sounds again. I really want to reach an artistic or thematic appreciation for it though, but I don't think I'm going to get that on my own. Comments are certainly going to help as I can find and discover other people's perspective on this track. We're going to take a moment here to read some lyrics, but I'm not hoping for much. Kind of expecting them to be just as esoteric as the music was. Let's dive into them and see what they're singing about. Alright. Lyrically, this is a little all over the place. It's tossing a bunch of different I don't know, little snippets, vignettes of life together. The intro seems to be about a child growing up. Baby, love me now that you're born. Baby in your cradle, look at me. Baby speaking rhymes now that you're 3. Ride your German Shepherd till you're 5. Baby thinks the TV is alive. Baby spends the night out. You're 13. Banging erasers and washing the board. It seems to be about childhood, growing up from newborn to at least 13 here. Going to school, though. And then it seems to juxtapose this with being passed out on the floor on a New Year's evening. It says, just yesterday you wore the sword. Watch your New Year's evening wash away. You're on the floor. Can you hear me, troubadour? And it could almost be that all of this remembrance of the childhood is in a drunken stupor. New Year's Eve is usually about celebration, drinking for the next year, but instead of celebrating, he's passed out on the floor. Another New Year's Eve washed away. To juxtapose the quick growth of childhood with the stagnation and might even be depression of where they're at now. The next series of verses seems to, there's 4 of them. I don't make sense of all of them. The first one talks about being tangled in a broken kite, not being Ben Franklin, but being entrusted with the light. Verse 2 talks about growing corn white on every side, but not being able to take it, and instead having to fake it. Immediately makes me think of fake it till you make it, but I don't know the whole corn thing. Unless corn being gold, but it says the corn's white, and it grows on all sides. I don't know. Verse 3 just talks about picking pigments. Yeah, I don't know. The one line, though, that I think stands out says, my mind is not unkind, it's just open. I think that's an interesting description for somebody who might be struggling with having a positive mindset on life. It's not that my mind is mean, I'm just open to a full spectrum of thoughts. Definitely feels very millennial humor there. Speaking of, when did this come out? 2000. Probably not millennials then. Maybe really young millennials. I don't know. This song seems to be about adults though, so I'm gonna guess Gen Xers. Anyways, though, we come to a bridge where it just constantly repeats the word run over and over. We have a random section that says, I told the baker's daughter that I didn't want the water. She only likes it when I beg, so I expect she's waiting. Feels completely out of nowhere, but also this idea that we're constantly looking at different aspects of something, this concept of, life vignettes. It could be that. From here, though, we reach a section that says Part 2, and as far as I can tell, this is where I had mentioned the song began to repeat instead of being constantly moving. And here we have one really long verse that's completely linear. I believe the vocals had this rising and falling ostinato, just coming up in notes and then returning back down in notes. And this was hyper repetitive, but what was being said is constantly changing. It just speaks about remembering some days of the past, focusing on some internal demons when the bell of an ice cream man wakes him up from that. He remembers chocolate shakes and waking up to the sun and playing ping pong. Remembers autumn clouds, but they're distorting a little bit. It jumps around between a few things, remembers running off to a nearby pharmacy, and it kind of changes to a modern perspective, though. It says, I've spied on rage and middle age, and I've been told when I'm walking on a wire with 8 other eyes, I'll be sure and pack the best of the 8 other sides. I believe this is supposed to juxtapose everything else, much like the introduction shows this time skip between the simplicity of childhood and the reality of adulthood. I think that this is supposed to be a vignette of memories, of experiences of this person, and now at the end of the song, we see that they're just not very happy. The final verse then goes on to have a repeated mantra with one word changed every time. It says, when I stay shy, you stay shy. When I say bye, you say bye. When I say go, you say go. And when I sing row, you sing row. A lining up of whatever you and I are, a synchronicity between them. And then we have the outro that says, my singing voice is gone, over and over and over. I don't get a lot of this, but between the annotations that helped me in a few places and some of the annotations I still don't get help from. Maybe there's more information on the album. Maybe if you're familiar with the artists and their history, maybe some of that makes more sense. But I'd read an annotation, I'm like, I think I'm more confused by the line now than when I just had the line by itself. But yeah, between the gist that I get from this and the help from the annotations, it does seem to be about somebody who is disillusioned with their life. Remembers back to an earlier time when things were easier and fun and the innocence of youth, and is trying to reconcile who they are now. Why did life go so awry? And musically, we kind of hear that. There's a lot of tension, clashing sounds in this track. It is, well, as I mentioned, the music, it does one thing harmonically, the vocals do another thing harmonically. There is that schism between them. This song is about a division between two things, the past and the present. But I also think it's interesting that if part one is all of these vignettes, the memories, the idea of the music moving rapidly through them would be the speed at which life seemed to have passed by. If part two is who he is today, it could be that the repetition in the music is supposed to be a musical allegory for the repetition of life. Every day is the same. You wake up, you go to work, come home, have a boring dinner, watch some TV, go to sleep, and the next day is the same. It is what creates the depression in our narrator to begin with. I mean, he even talks about some very mundane things in a positive light, just things that were different. It didn't have to be bombastic in his childhood. He just did a lot of different small things. That sort of enjoyment, that excitement isn't showing up in his modern life. And so the music reflects that. The end of the song, being about who he is today, is just very repetitive. I think the lyrics help me understand the song a little bit more. I came to a nice thematic conclusion on things, but casually, again, still not something I'd like to return to, though it is impressive that they found some experimental ways to showcase some of the themes that are on the periphery of the lyrics and put them into the spotlight of the music, allowing both combined lyrics and music to create a very full experience with this song and its narrator and the emotions that that person is going through. Those are my thoughts. Animal Collective's Alvin Row. What did you think of this song? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you just picked up on some stuff I didn't. You want to add that down there. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. Let me know what's up. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. We do have one more video today. We're going to be checking out some brand new music from Leprous. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to kick off the new theme, which is... oh, it's the representation theme, isn't it? I think that's what's coming up next. We have some good stuff on that. I'm excited to check it out and to dive into that. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.